Okay, Erev Tov Rabbi Shai, we are in the week leading up to Chag HaPesach, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. By this point next week, it will already be Pesach. We will already had our first Seder, which is very exciting and also very nerve-wracking, being that most people are like cleaning and kashering and preparing this week, right? Up until the Shabbos beforehand, things are not so tense, but now things start to get nervous. Baruch Hashem, we've had a lot of shalos and we've dealt with a lot of questions of the kashering, and this week I'm sure we're going to get a lot more shalos about products and buying and all the rest of it. But we should not forget or get away from the fact that there are many halachas of Leil HaSeder that we need to cover. And we'll talk about some of the shiurim with regards to matzah, maror, and daled kossos, beginning with daled kossos because that's the one that requires the most preparation. What I mean by that is the following. There is a mitzvah to drink 4 cups of wine on Leil HaSeder. Those 4 cups of wine were instituted to go along with 4 separate sections of the Haggadah, with Kaddish, with Magid, with Baruch, and with Hallel. Those are your 4 cups of wine that you have to drink at the Seder. There is a machlokes in the Mishnah whether or not there's a 5th cup of wine, a machlokes between the Rambam and the Rif, exactly whether or not we pass on that. Most people do not drink a 5th cup of wine, unless you are a Talmud of Rav Goren or Radzina Chassid. Most people don't drink the 5th cup of wine, but we have a minute to leave a cup of wine for Leo. Maybe we'll talk about that another day. Exactly how much wine do you need to drink, and what exactly is called a cup of wine? So this is important to note. First and foremost, the shear of a cup is what Chazal refer to as revius. Revius means a quarter of a log. How much is a log? How much is a revius? So this is somewhat of a debate amongst the poskim. The standard measurement of a revius, according to the standard measurement, according to the vast majority of the poskim, is around 3 ounces or about 86 cc's in metric. For those of us that are metric, the shear of the Chazon Ish and the Rebbe Yehuda, with the concern that maybe the size of the eggs in the days of Chazal was smaller, or maybe that there's what to consider about whether or not we have an accurate measurement, is about 150 cc's or about 5 ounces, more or less. How much of a revius do you need to drink for each of your cups of wine? So the amount that a person needs to drink of your kos is in this order. One should drink, at the very least, half of your cup, ideally. What if you can't drink half of your cup? So, meaning, ideally you should drink the full cup, but at least you should drink half the cup. At the very least, you should drink malei lugmav, which is a cheekful, which is this amount divided by 2. That's called the malei lugmav. That comes up with regards to the shir shtia, the amount that is considered drinking, and it's relevant to Leil HaSeder and it's relevant to Yom Kippur. How much drinking is considered drinking to violate Yom Kippur and to drink a cup of wine on Leil HaSeder. In order to solve all of these considerations, the best thing to do is to make sure that you have a cup that holds a revius. That each person should have a cup that holds a revius. For Sfardim, most the Sfardim poskim hold that you can be mekel because while it's true that it has an ikar midaraisa, like the Mishnah Berurah says, most Sfardim poskim, the Sarah of Vaida writes, that you could be mekel to have the shir the midrabanan, which is 86 cc's, about 3 ounces. 3 ounce cup is not very big. It's 3 ounce cup is a dentist cup worth of wine. Half of that, 1.5 ounces, more or less, is probably about a malei lugmav of a standard adult, which means that if you're going to drink half of that, so it's about 1.5 ounces, and you are yotzei suddenly chaladas, meaning being that it's midrabanan, good. For Ashkenazim, the Mishnah Berurah writes that you should be makron for the larger shear, which is about 5 ounces, and drinking half of that is 2.5 ounces, which means that even if you are going to be machmer according to the Mishnah Berurah for all 4 of the cups, and I mean the Mishnah Berurah shita, which is the Rebbe Yehuda, the Chazon Ish, you're going to end up, if you drink half of your 5 ounce cup of wine for each of the 4 cups, you're going to end up with 10 ounces of wine, which is not a tremendous amount of wine for most people to drink during a few hours of Leil HaSeder. However, for some people that is difficult. For some people that is challenging, because I want to remind you that the chiyuv of drinking 4 cups of wine is both for men and women, and oftentimes, and I get this from a lot of the women in the community, that we're not used to drinking that amount of wine. It's going to make me feel sick. It's going to make me feel nauseous. I don't want to get a headache. Okay, so what can you do? What can you do about this? Can you use grape juice? Can you use grape juice? So this is an interesting question. Rav Moshe Feinstein writes in Igros Moshe that while he is strongly of the opinion, it's not the opinion of the Rambam and the Chabad Poskim that hold like this, that you need to drink wine for every Kiddush and Havdalah. Rav Moshe was not of the opinion that you need to drink wine for Kiddush and Havdalah. He is of the opinion that you need to drink wine for the Arba Kosos. You should ideally be drinking wine for the Arba Kosos. Why? Because this is not just about chashivas, it's not just about upgrading the bracha, it's also about drinking a l'chaim. You're toasting to our freedom. So the toast to your freedom doesn't get accomplished. Nobody makes a toast on grape juice, right? That far we haven't got it. Nobody toasts on a cup of grape juice. You can use grape juice to upgrade the bracha. It's a brei preagafen. That's how we pass in halacha l'maisa. But it's not a toast. So Rav Moshe writes that ideally you should be drinking wine. If you cannot drink wine, it's going to make you feel sick. It's going to make you feel nauseous. Yes, you can use grape juice. That's fine. That is okay. And in that case, you would drink your at least a half of your cup of grape juice. Then you're good to go, no problems. And that's good for kids. Absolutely, the kids, if you want to drink all the sugar grape juice, go for it. If you want the light grape juice, that's fine, as long as it's actual grape juice and not grape juice mixed with water. That's important to know. Grape juice. Light grape juice is fine. Grape juice mixed with water, not okay, because that is no longer grape juice, that is grape-flavored water. But if you want to cut your wine with water, that you can do, and this is the shear by which you can do so. Varman writes that in order for something to be considered yain, it needs to at least, in the days of Chazal, they had yain mazur, which means diluted wine. The wine that they had was very, very potent, was very strong. It was called yain chai, and you actually weren't allowed to drink yain chai. At Leil HaSeder, you had to be, the halacha was limzog et hakos. You had to dilute your cup of wine with water. Everybody diluted their wine with water because otherwise you get sick. So, how much water is water enough that, or not going to dilute it to the point that it's no longer going to be wine? So this is your measurement that is important to understand here. If you have a wine that is 12% alcohol, and you dilute it 1 part wine to 2 parts water, to the extent that it is now 4% alcohol, that's still wine. You can make a brei preagafen on that. You can be yotze dalit kosos with that. Which means, yeah.
So it meaning the cup is, let's say, 6 ounces, how much? 6 ounces?
5 ounces. 5 ounce cup.
Ounces.
Yeah.
So make it, I'm going to say 6, let's just say. So, and then 2 ounces just is the
wine, and the rest of it water.
Wow.
Yeah. The rest of that is water. And then, what you can do, if somebody's very nervous about drinking that amount of wine, say you have your 5 ounce cup, and I'll tell you how to do the measurements in a second. Let's say you have your 5 ounce cup, and you filled it up with a measurement of 2 parts water to 1 part wine, and you are drinking half of that. It means that you are drinking half an ounce of actual wine for each of your kosos. For dalit kosos means you're going to drink 2 ounces of wine on Leil HaSeder. There are very few people that can't handle doing that.
And that's preferable?
Preferable to grape juice, yes.
Wow.
You can cut it with grape juice as well if you want. You can dilute your wine with grape juice if you are of that persuasion. But as long as a third of it is wine to the extent that your solution at the end is at least 4% alcohol, you're okay.
You as far as like,
yeah, if you're worried that you're going to get a headache, that's the way to do it. Seth, what do you say?
Is it better to use a good bottle of wine
Yes.
and dilute it, or taking like the Bartenura,
Good bottle of wine. Use a good bottle of wine that you enjoy. Whatever you enjoy more.
Whatever is enjoyed.
Right.
It's not an objective standard.
Yeah, whatever you enjoy
It's
more.
subjective.
Yeah. The halacha is ideally you should use red wine.
No, I'm
But
saying-
if you
I'm
like,
saying,
but if you like white wine more, then you use white wine.
the Joven stuff. The
Yeah.
Joven is red wine, but it's like sweet and
If you don't enjoy it, don't drink
4%
it.
alcohol.
Drink what you want to drink. And dilute it if you need to dilute it, that's fine. But as long as you enjoy it, that's fine. Which means, and this is my recommendation to everybody, and you have to do this before Shabbos, is measure out. So say you got a bottle of wine that you're planning on diluting. So measure out a jug of water that holds like 3 bottles of wine, right, more or less, and then fill it up with water. On Leil HaSeder, you open up your bottle of wine, you pour it into your jug of water, and then stir it up, and that's what you're going to use for Dalikosis. And then you're good to go. Then you get, now if you want to dilute your wine before Shabbos and put it in the fridge, you can do that too. But there's a shadow whether or not you could mix white wine with red wine because it's microphone like this. That maybe even though there's no tzvir by Ochlin, that maybe you should be machmer because the Leil said you want the wine to be red. So ideally do it before Shabbos. Unless it's going to make the wine taste worse, in which case you can be makel that you could pour it into the water afterwards. But practically speaking, prepare this beforehand. Prepare it beforehand, and one of the best hacks that you can sort out for your Leil HaSeder is if you figure out you have bottles of wine that that you're going to open, whatever the case is, and then you can pour 2/3 of it out, and then fill it with water for the rest of it, and then everybody has their bottle of wine at the table that they're planning on using with Dalikosis. That's the easiest way to solve a lot of these issues. But prepare it beforehand. The more that you prepare this beforehand, the easier that it's going to be, and the more that everybody is going to be besimcha. Now, I'll send out a link on the chat as well, because a couple of years ago I found 5-ounce beer tasting glasses. It's not good for beer for Leil HaSeder. That's we're of the persuasion that beer is chametz, and you shouldn't have chametz on Leil HaSeder. But having a 5-ounce glass, if everybody has a 5-ounce glass, it solves all of your problems. You fill up the cup, you drink the whole thing ideally, or half of it if you can't, as much as you get, no problem. And then off you go for all of your dalikosis, and that solves all of your problems. Because what ends up happening is by cup number 3, cup number 4, everybody's full and everybody's kvetching, whatever. And it's like, okay, I'll have a sip. And you're not yotze with the sip. You need to drink at least half of the cup. So plan it out appropriately. Then you'll be yotze with your dalikosis. Everybody should get whatever they need to get and do whatever they need to do in order to make sure that we can fulfill all of the mitzvahs appropriately.